Good morning, Chiefs Kingdom, and happy Red Friday. This is John with Chiefs Coffee Corner, coming back to you for the first time from video format after a couple years hiatus. This blog started as a long form written piece at the start of the 2020 season, and then we did it in the 2021 season. Just a brief rundown of how this kind of goes and what I kind of foresee. It's kind of fluid, so bear with me if we don't follow these rules all season long. I'm going to review a coffee from the city that the Chiefs opponent, and then I will give a review of that. I will give a kind of post-game analysis of the previous week's game, a brief preview of the upcoming week's game, and just kind of have a little fun with that. It combines some passions of mine: coffee, Chiefs football, all things Kansas City, and hospitality. I really can't tell you all things that we'll discuss over the course of this season, but without further ado, let's get started. And we're going to get started with our first coffee of the year. I thought it was only fitting that we would have something from the country of Brazil and from the city of Los Angeles, California, home of the Los Angeles Chargers, the Chiefs' opponent last week. So I have Be Bright Coffee Roasters. They're off of Melrose in Los Angeles, California. Don't ask me where that's at. I've never been to the city myself, but I can tell you that this is a good everyday drinker. Brazilians, I find most of the time, are better in blends and not as a single origin. This one kind of speaks true to that. They're kind of one note, in my opinion, even though the roaster likes to say that there's flavors of cocoa nibs and toasted marshmallow and cherry cola. Any fruitiness is very, very muted in this brew. And the chocolate is very forward in that. So if you like a very simple, tasty everyday roast, this is a good one. If you like those milk chocolate notes, this is a good one. It's not overly bitter or acidic. It's kind of heavy and syrupy on the back end. But for a fall roast this morning, notwithstanding, because it's over 90 degrees in Kansas City today, this is a good porch drinker, and I strongly suggest that you try. They have 4 different categories that they have in their coffees, and they're super proud of all of them. And they had great reviews, both from their cafe and from their roastery, so I was confident that this would be one that I enjoyed. And to be honest, over the last 10 days or so, I've drank the entire bag. This is the last bit of it, and I've really enjoyed it. So give Be Bright a try. Just go on their website. It took less than 5 days from order to my front door with just standard shipping to get this coffee here in Kansas City. So Be Bright Coffee Roasters, this is their Brazil Rio Brilhante Fosforico. My Spanish is not good. So, or Portuguese, I guess, would probably be more appropriate for this one. On to the game of what went down Friday night, which, if you're part of Chiefs Kingdom, was not good. I need a little caffeine to get into this. So, all off season, I have been skeptical of what the Chiefs kind of went about trying to make a difference on their shortcomings from a season ago. It's hard to say that the Chiefs had many shortcomings. They went 15-2 in the regular season, and really it was 15-1, notwithstanding that Week 18 game against the Denver Broncos. No, it was not pretty. The offense was grinding, to say the least. The defense was good to borderline great, and carried the team. Special teams were strong for the most part, as Dave Toub typically does. The kicking game, especially from the place kicker Harrison Butker, was really, really good. Matt Araiza, I like the power of his leg, and I hope that with some seasoning we can get on the accuracy and the touch on that. But it was was a frustrating watch for most of the season, but the results yielded well. I mean, you can't really get mad about a 15-2 regular season, a really good run through the AFC side of the playoffs. But the decimation that happened in Super Bowl 59 cannot be ignored, and I think the league took notice that there's weaknesses on this Chiefs roster that can be exposed, and it was a little concerning. The glaring one was the left side of the offensive line, and the revolving door that we had at left tackle, and I was the first to be excited and to be hopeful for Joshua Simmons and the first round draft pick of the Kansas City Chiefs out of the Ohio State University. But I'm not a believer of Kingsley Suamataia at all at left guard or really any position on the offensive line, unless he can be coached up. I think the Chiefs, Andy Reid and Andy Heck, are loyal to a fault to their guys, at the detriment of Patrick Mahomes in this offense. I liked the signing of Jalen Moore, and I would like to see some use of it. He, in spot duty, he proved more than formidable. I think that he can be a starting offensive lineman in this league. If it's not needed at left tackle, there's definite spots at left guard and right tackle on this line. And I don't care that you're paying $20+ million to Jawaan Taylor. He is a liability to this team. In the 41 games that he's made a start here in Kansas City, he has had at least a penalty in 25 of those starts and has multiple penalties, 2 or more, in 11. So a quarter of the time that he straps up and starts for the Kansas City Chiefs, he's going to have 2 or more penalties, and that's unacceptable. It's we're near 300 penalty yards for this individual in a Chiefs uniform, and there's no need to. You made a poor decision, Brett Veach, on signing him. I understand at the time that it was needed to shore up a position of need, and he grades out well for the most part, but it's seen to the entire fan base, and I know that you're not trying to appease the fan base, Brett Veach or Andy Reid. You're trying to win championships, and he was an instrumental part in 2 of those Super Bowls. I'm not going to say that he was not in the slightest, but right now he is a liability, and I think it would send a loud message to your team and to your fan base that we have another asset that we can plug into that position, and that you're going to have to earn your right to playing time, especially for what Jawaan Taylor is a contract year. If he wants to get his 3rd contract and get another payday, he has to prove it on the field and not as a liability to the Chiefs offense. All of that said, to go on to what Friday night was. And to be honest, guys, I did not get to watch a whole lot of the game in great detail. I've watched some highlights. I've listened to Sports Talk Radio. I'm in tune enough to feel confident in what I'm saying in this. When your number 1 receiver for the first 6 weeks of the season gets knocked out 3 plays into the season from a 13-year veteran, it's going to slow down the start of what you're trying to do. And Andy Reid, I feel, in all of his genius, is really good in those scripted 15 to 20 plays to start a game, and to have a key cog in that taken away, I think really slowed things up. Not to make an excuse for how poor the offensive line played, the drops from receivers, the mismanagement of the run game, the defensive secondary coverage issues, really the back 7, Nick Bolton and Shamari Connor are both liabilities on that back end. But you can't expect 2 guys who are not strong in coverage to do well when they're put in positions to be in coverage for longer than a couple of seconds, and that starts with the guys up front. We just paid George Karlaftis a bunch of money. There's two $20+ million guys on that defensive line right now with Chris Jones and George Karlaftis. We need a better pass rush. And it's going to start with those two guys. I didn't understand the Mike Pennel cut at the beginning of rosters, and Derek Nottie I felt has been a declining player for 3 or 4 years, but the Chiefs, they like familiarity, and they'll take the 28, 29-year-old guy over the 34-year-old guy. It's kind of what they do, so it's who we have on the roster currently. There are strong problems like I said, in that secondary, especially in crossing routes. Anybody who is looking to get across the middle of the field, it's open all day long because the Chiefs choose not to. They want to man up, and it's their identity. And I'm sure it will be successful at some point in time in the season, but early on, it's a strong concern. I thought it was a genius game plan by Harbaugh and Herbert to go out there and keep the Chiefs on their heels with the passing game, as everybody expected this to be 1995 Nebraska football. Turn around and hand it off to the backs that they have, including the rookie Omarion Hampton, who as a starter on 2 of my fantasy teams, I was super excited about this matchup for, and was sorely disappointed. Not that that has anything to do with this channel and what we're about, but I'm just going to lay it all out there for y'all on how this is. So it was a disappointment. Chris Jones going inside on that last play was just absurd. He knows better. He knew it in the moment that that's middle school football 101. You protect and contain the outside. And Justin Herbert's a smart enough quarterback to know so, and athletic enough to make that play, and he did. And the Chiefs played a very, very poor game in pretty much all facets of it. Offense, defense, even special teams. The 59-yarder at the end of the half was an amazing play, but then you could turn around and miss an extra point. That's not acceptable from the highest paid kicker in football. There's a lot of things that weren't acceptable in this game, in my opinion. But it's week 1. You gotta kind of move past it and go on to week 2. And that's where I'm more concerned, is that how much the Chiefs were exposed by Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, that Eagles defense. And it's hard for me to believe that the Chiefs will be that enough better to completely overcome the gap and the chasm that was created in that Super Bowl. There's reason to believe that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Steve Spagnuolo will figure this out and do enough to create the opportunity for a win for Kansas City in their home opener. I'm not confident going into this game, and this is the first time in a while that I have not been confident that the two biggest pieces of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are going to be able to get this win. So at this moment, I am predicting a loss and an 0-2 start for Kansas City. I think it will be a higher scoring affair than typical. I'm thinking 30-24. Philadelphia. I just am not confident that the offense can score enough points to keep up with Philadelphia's offense and the weapons that they have. And I'm not sure that the defensive needs and shortcomings from a week ago are going to be completely fixed. I think they will be as the season goes along on the defensive side. I'm confident in that. I think the pieces are strong enough and the coaching is good enough that they will overcome that throughout the season. Offense, I'm still a lot scared about. I don't think the Chiefs have the personnel in the running back room to be real good in that aspect of the game. Isaiah Pacheco is a good back. He is far from a great back, and he's injury prone. Kareem Hunt is over 30 years old and averaged less than 4 yards a carry a year ago. I think it was 3.5 yards a carry or 3.4 yards a carry on nearly 200 touches, and that's just not good enough in this league. I do like the addition of Brashard Smith in that backfield. He's very raw, and I think he can take over some of those Jerick McKinnon, Samaje Perine kind of roles in the future. I think that's going to take some time over the year. The wide receiver group is decimated. We're less than 2 weeks into this, and we have a suspension with Rashee Rice. Xavier Worthy's out for at least a couple games, I would imagine. Jalen Royals looks like he's going to be out for this week's matchup as well, our rookie 4th-round pick. And, it's Hollywood Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster, and I'm afraid that the wind will pick up and something will break on them. So, if I'm out there picking, possibilities for surprise players in this game, especially on the offensive side, I like Noah Gray. He complements, the offense very well, especially when we need a reliable pass catcher. Tyquan Thornton over the top, if given the chance to go that way, I could see having a big play. The aforementioned Smith, I think could be utilized in some sort of gimmicky way, a la Mecole Hardman or Xavier Worthy. I think the skill set's very similar in that way. But I don't think there's enough firepower from this offense to get the win this year. And so an 0-2 start looks likely from my vantage point. I would love to be surprised, and 1-1 is something to build off of, especially if you were able to beat the defending Super Bowl champs. But I'm not confident in that. Overall, on the season, I am a little scared. I think you guys can hear it in my voice that I'm not completely comfortable with a lot of areas in with this team. I think I could be surprised. I think there's room for growth, especially in the wide receiver room and the offensive line. I think we can grow defensive line if we can stay healthy and improve as the year goes on. My concerns are with Chris Jones and his age right now. If he's on the backside of that Hall of Fame career, which very well could be. He's 31 years old. That's a distinct possibility that we're seeing the declining years on that. The secondary outside of Trent McDuffie there's a lot of question marks. Jalen Watson has shown super promise. I mentioned Shamari Connor. I like the things that he's able to add. I like both Brian Cook and Jaden Hicks in the as safeties, but I think we're missing that veteran leadership that Reed offered us over the last couple of years. So, I want them, as a Chiefs fan, as a Chiefs homer, to be super successful, and I think that they can get there. I'm not writing this season, even if we go into. I think the Chiefs are in the top 3 seeds in the AFC. I still think they're going to win the AFC West. I think they're going to compete with both Baltimore and Buffalo at the end of the season. It's just it's a hard hill to overcome, that 0-2 start. Not completely out of the realm of possibilities, but they're at the very least going to be 2 games behind in the division at the start of the season, and that's not a comfortable place to be in. I expect a good season. I expect playoffs. I expect it's hard not to expect anything outside of the AFC Championship game for the Chiefs because of what Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have been able to do in his tenure. So I'm not picking against the Chiefs as a whole on the season. It's just this week. So I have an exciting roast that's coming in from Philadelphia. It's supposed to be delivered today that I'm happy to share with you guys. Once again, I want you to check out Be Bright Roasters in Los Angeles. Share this with anybody who's a Chiefs fan or a football fan, a coffee lover. I'm passionate about this, and I look forward to hearing from you guys in the future. Go Chiefs!